Inner Mongolia, China's vast autonomous region, spanning from China's northeast all the way to its far west. Geographically, culturally, no region in China can match it for sheer breadth. Two great mountain ranges, the Greater Xing'an Range and the Yinshan Mountains, stretch east to west across it. Even the Yellow River winds through a corner of it. Forest, grassland, desert. This is a place of diverse, dramatic natural landscapes. Our aerial journey starts in the city of Hulunbuir in eastern Inner Mongolia. At the foot of the Greater Xing'an Range, we'll enjoy the colors of spring. We'll pass through grasslands in summer, then look for crisp, autumnal scenes. Come winter, it's time to bid farewell to the larches, to brave the ice and snow and venture once more over the grasslands. Spring in the Greater Xing'an Range is very short, often not arriving until late May. And as soon as it does come, these lakeside rhododendron seize the opportunity to burst into full bloom. Soil by the Da'ar Bean Lake comes from a volcanic eruption that took place 90,000 years ago. The rhododendron here can grow up to nearly 2 meters tall. There are more than 900 species of rhododendron in the world. Around 60% of them can be found in China. The grassland in summer. On the grassland, there are more than 1,000 different species of plants. Of all the grassland animals, sheep are the most abundant. Meek and mild, these are creatures that love company. Sheep are born followers. They'll follow their flock anywhere. You can see the lake's glorious colors much more clearly from above than you can from the ground. This is the largest lake in Inner Mongolia. Hulun Lake has gone by many different names throughout history. Historically, it was called Dazua. In Mongolian, it is called Dalai Lake, meaning lake like the ocean. Covering an area of more than 2,000 square kilometers, it is indeed an inland sea. This exotic city has a very long history. In 1903, the Chinese Eastern Railway, built by Tsarist Russia, opened. This was the line's first station in China. It's called Mongolia, and it's located where the borders of China, Russia, and Mongolia meet. Mongolia at night is like nowhere else. At night, the 30-meter-tall Russian doll looks outstanding. This architecture on the border with Russia demonstrates how important this place is as a national gateway. For more than 100 years now, it has linked China to the outside world. 60% of China's overland trade with Russia goes through here. If the map of China resembles a huge rooster, this meandering river is the coxcomb of China. Rising in the greater Xing'an Range, it flows southwest to northeast, marking the boundary between China and Russia, eventually joining the Heilongjiang River. Although only around 1,000 kilometers of the river runs through China, it has over 1,800 tributaries, all of which play a vital role, nourishing the Hulun Bear grassland. Ergun River is the cradle of the Mongolian people, nurturing generations of wandering herdsmen. Let's follow the sightseeing train into the autumn forest. The largest cool-temperature coniferous forest in China sits in the greater Xing'an Range, in the eastern part of the Inner Mongolia Plateau. Despite the dense growth deep within the forest, it somehow remains bright. The forest abounds with plants and wild animals. This is the best place to view the greater Xing'an Range. The greater Xing'an Range might not be the highest mountain range in the world. Its highest peak is less than 2,000 meters above sea level. But what it lacks in altitude, it makes up for in length, stretching about 1,200 kilometers. With the onset of winter, the temperature plummets to minus 40 degrees. The landscape becomes shrouded in white. The greater Xing'an Range ensures that winters here are colder than they might otherwise be. The range stops warm Pacific currents reaching the Inner Mongolian Plateau, at the same time trapping cold air from Siberia. Snow and ice accumulates, an important source of water for forests and grasslands come the spring thaw. Eighteen sessions of the Winter Nadam Fair have been held here at Hulun Bear. Nadam means entertainment in Mongolian. This biannual combination of ancestral sacrifice and entertainment is one of the grassland's liveliest occasions. The traditional Nadam was strictly annual, held in July and August. Because of the rise of tourism, the winter Nadam is now held too. Competitions and tournaments are the most eye-catching parts of the festival. The winners will be regarded as heroes on the grassland. Everybody knows that camels have tremendous stamina. What most people don't know is that they're fast animals too, able to reach speeds of up to 70 kilometers per hour. Wrestling is one of the 3 traditional Mongolian martial arts. These wrestling competitions can be grueling, sometimes lasting 2 or 3 days. It's great to know these people still value bravery and honor as much as they ever did. On this leg of the journey, we'll trace the veins of history, taking in colorful maple forests, exploring the origins of Chinese civilization in the Hongshan Mountains, flying over breathtaking landscapes sculpted by glaciers, before finally coming to the volcanoes of the Arshan Mountains. Every autumn, forests in the hinterland of the Horchin burst into color. Here you'll find maple leaves in a bewildering array of colors. Even in the same tree, colors of maple leaves on old branches and new shoots are very different. Of course, this isn't the ideal environment for tall trees to grow. That's why these maple trees are shorter and stouter. They thrive much better in this harsh environment that way. A puzzling enigma left by our ancestors. The ruins of an ancient city built out of stone. A tantalizing glimpse of life 4,000 years ago. A fortified city, now nothing but intriguing ruins. 40 kilometers to its east is the most populous city in Inner Mongolia, Chufeng. Chufeng meaning Red Mountain. It takes its name from a red-colored mountain. During the Neolithic Age, the matriarchal clan lived around Hongshan. Jade was central to their culture, probably investing it with great significance as a way of communicating with the spiritual realm. Large quantities of jade objects have been found in this area. In the 1950s, archaeologists began to refer to ruins similar to this elsewhere in the country as part of Hongshan culture. Now you can see an amazing sight, a forest of granite stacks stretching for 40 kilometers. Though these granite pillars seem to be separate, they're actually connected to each other at their bases. The explanation for this geographical wonder lies in the Ice Age some 2.6 million years ago, when this whole area was covered in a layer of ice 300 meters thick. Over time, erosion caused by the movement of these glaciers and the floodwaters created as they melted together with strong winds carved out this amazing forest of stone pillars. In October, migratory birds begin to fly over Lake Dalinor. Sometimes they fly in an I formation, sometimes in a V formation. Now it's the migration season. Dalinor Lake becomes a stopping-off post for migratory birds, just as it has for generations. Dalinor Lake is typical of the lakes found on the plateau. Exposed on the arid Inner Mongolian plateau, evaporation means there is a high concentration of salts in these waters. Not many species of fish can survive in these brackish waters. Nevertheless, there's enough here to tempt the birds to make the stop-off once a year. At its peak, more than 70,000 migratory birds would come here to refresh themselves on their way to warmer climes. This landscape looks tranquil, but it owes its origin to a literally earth-shattering event. During the Quaternary period, enormous volcanic eruptions took place in the Arshan area, inundating the whole area with white-hot magma. In time, it cooled, leaving this, the largest volcanic lava landform in Asia. You don't have to go far to find evidence of volcanic activity. There are more than 50 volcanic cones in Arshan, visible reminders of the convulsions that took place here millions of years ago. As water accumulated in the craters, many of these became lakes, known as Tian Shu. Arshan has the highest density of Tian Shu lakes in the world. Tian Shu means heavenly lake, and it's the special qualities of these lakes that have earned them this name. Not only are the waters of these lakes clear and calm as a mill pond, they do not dry up, nor do they overflow, even after the heaviest rains. The explanation is buried deep underground. The volcanic rock from which the lake is formed is of a porous nature, so excess water is soaked up like a sponge when flood threatens, eventually finding its way back into the lake. Because of its volcanic history, Arshan is rich in geothermal resources. Even at minus 40 degrees Celsius, this section of the Halha River doesn't freeze. Away from the unfrozen river, 4 hot spring clusters have been found in Arshan. In some places, hot and cold springs sit cheek by jowl. Some are a fraction of a meter apart. Despite their proximity, the temperature difference between them can be as much as 40 degrees Celsius. For the cattle who come here to drink, there's an added benefit: chance to take a hot bath. On the next stage of our journey, we'll go deep into the primeval grasslands on the trail of a mysterious force from the depths of the earth. Then back to prehistory to see the traces of the old masters of this land, the dinosaurs, before fast-forwarding to the Yuan dynasty to check out its old capital. Mongolian horses can run 50 to 100 kilometers a day for more than 10 days. And they can survive in the toughest conditions. Even when there's 40 centimeters of snow, Mongolian horses somehow manage to find grass. Thousands of years ago, wild horses were domesticated. Unlike many domesticated horses, Mongolian ones don't need luxury stables to live in. The vast open grasslands are home enough for them. Once a pony is tied up with a halter, it becomes the most loyal friend a herdsman could wish for. Mongolian horses are strong for riding and pulling heavy loads. And they're hardy enough to withstand the snowstorms that blow in from Siberia. With a kick that can crack open the head of any wolf foolish enough to think he's found an easy meal. A volcano lies beneath this grass. "100 to 150 kilometers below the Earth's crust, magma flows at high temperatures and pressures. When the magma breaks through a weak point in the crust, a volcano forms. There are about 300 different types of volcanoes in the Shilin Hot Abaga volcanic group. Inner Mongolia is one of the most important volcanic zones in China. From the greater Xing'an Range in the east to the Huhat in the middle, the volcanic group stretches for nearly 1,000 kilometers. About 100 million years ago, this desolate land was once a very different place, lush, green, and full of life. The two giant statues on National Highway 208 are statues of Brachiosaurus, the huge herbivorous dinosaur. Passing through them, we go back to the Cretaceous period, the dinosaurs' heyday. Over the past 100 years, more than 20 dinosaur fossils have been unearthed in Erenhut. No one knows how many kinds of dinosaurs lived on Earth, but dinosaur fossils have been unearthed all over the world. These haunting grassland ruins were once the capital of a vast empire. In 1256, Kublai Khan, founding emperor of the Yuan dynasty, founded his capital here. The capital would go down in history and legend as the fantastic city of Xanadu, the home of Kublai Khan's stately pleasure dome. Years later, the capital would be moved to Khanbalik, known to us today as Beijing. Khanbalik was the mirror image of Xanadu. Both were walled cities comprising outer cities, inner cities, and imperial cities. Six of the 11 emperors of the Yuan dynasty came to power in Xanadu, a city that witnessed its rise to glory, and whose name has been remembered in song and legend ever since. For this next stage, we set out from central Inner Mongolia to see how something other than sheep and cattle is now being farmed on these grasslands: wind. After that, we'll pick up the trail of the winding Yellow River as it makes its detour through Inner Mongolia, arriving at two of the province's most important cities. All year round, whatever the season, the wind blows here. It's something that the locals have always complained about, but now it's a cause for celebration. With the wind blowing, on average, 7,300 hours per annum, equivalent to 300 days and nights, it's windy here for the lion's share of the year, making it the ideal place to generate electricity. According to estimates, every 10 billion kilowatts generated by wind reduce carbon dioxide emissions by almost 10 million tons, saving 3 million tons of standard coal and 4.5 million tons of water. In 2017, the total wind power generated in Inner Mongolia was 55.1 billion kilowatt hours, close to half of Beijing's annual power consumption. From here on, the Yellow River leaves Inner Mongolia and enters Shanxi. Water flows slowly and quietly here. It's on this next stage of its journey to the sea, on its way through the Shanxi Grand Canyon, that it will really begin to deserve the name Yellow River. As it winds its way through hundreds of kilometers through the canyon, the Yellow River will pick up more than half of the sediment that earns it its name. Many Inner Mongolians like to call Huhat the Hu City. Hu is short for Huhat, the capital of Inner Mongolia. 42 nationalities live here. Together they are building this city, a city that already has a history of more than 400 years behind it. Hohat was once known as Jiao City. That's because during the Ming Dynasty, Ultan Khan, leader of the Tumd people, built the Dajiao Temple here. Huhat was once known as a city of temples. In an area of less than 20,000 square kilometers, there were nearly 100 temples. Nowadays, Hohat looks more and more beautiful. Looking at the night skyline, this is a city with a splendid future ahead of it. This temple was built deep in the Daqing Mountains. This is Wudong Temple. It was built about 300 years ago, modeled on the Tasho Hunpo temple in Tibet. Ever since then, hidden deep in the mountains, the Wudong Temple has thrived. In Mongolian, Baokatu means a place where there are deer. Legend has it that Genghis Khan dug up deer-shaped roots here and exclaimed, "Baokatu, here be deer," hence the name. This is an arid place with annual evaporation almost 10 times its precipitation. Despite that, there are more than 70 parks, each with an area of over 10,000 square meters here. Baotou began to thrive from the middle of the Ming Dynasty onwards, becoming a place of trade and commerce, a gateway connecting northwestern China, the Central Plains, and the outside world. It really began to take off in the 1950s when the construction of an iron and steel company brought thousands of workers and their families here, increasing the population by 80,000. Baotou Iron and Steel Group specializes in 2 high-quality products, steel and rare earths. If you've ever traveled by train in China, chances are you've used one of its products. The company produces 62% of the rails on the Beijing-Shanghai high-speed railway, 50% of the rails on the Beijing-Guangzhou high-speed railway, and nearly 2/3 of the rails on the Qinghai-Tibet railway. This leg of the trip also brings together Inner Mongolia's past and present. Here we come to the Yinshan Mountains, an important location in the history of the nomadic people of northern China. And in Huatao, where the river bends, the Huatao culture developed, playing an important role in the fusion of nomadic and Yellow River civilization. The Yinshan Mountains in central Inner Mongolia. In the Stone Age, people left mysterious patterns on the rocks of the Yinshan Mountains. In an area of 21,000 square kilometers, more than 50,000 Yinshan rock paintings have been found. It's believed that people were painting on these rocks for tens of thousands of years. The Yellow River suddenly bends northward. Blocked by a huge obstacle in the shape of the Yinshan Mountains, it's forced to zigzag its way east again. Between the Yellow River and the Yinshan Mountains is the Huatao Plain. Sanshanggong Water Conservancy Project supplies agricultural water to the Huatao Plain. Every year, most of the water allocated to the Huatao Plain through the sluice gate is used for drinking and irrigation. Normally, local people irrigate cultivated land 4 times a year, in spring, summer, and autumn. Some crops need to be watered more times than others. In some cases, irrigation needs to occur twice a year. In others, 4 or 5 times a year. Over the past 2,000 years, advances in agricultural technology have transformed the Huatao Plain into prime grain-growing country. Uliang-Suhai Lake is a gift left to us by the Yellow River. In 1850, the Yellow River was diverted southward, leaving behind a lake. Floods and the agricultural water inflow into the Hutao Plain have changed the appearance of the lake. "265 species of birds have settled here, of which 7 are listed as protected species. Water makes the land full of agility. The lake is still very young. What the future has in store is down to us and nature. It might not look that green, but you don't often come by land like this. And it's much greener than it was 30 years ago, when it was little more than a desert. 30 years on, it's a park. In fact, so successful have China's anti-desertification programs been that experts from far and wide have come here to learn from that experience. The Kubuqi is China's 7th largest desert. It's taken nearly 30 years for people to get to grips with this place, to learn how to get along with it. One way of slowing the spread of desert land is to cultivate plants resistant to the dry saline conditions found in environments like this. In Kubuqi, people have developed more than 1,000 drought-resistant and saline alkaline-tolerant plant seeds in order to help bind the sand together. Meanwhile, solar panels simultaneously are generating electricity from sunlight. And creating a shaded, vegetation-friendly environment. The return of green to the desert has also tempted animals to come back. This long path, like a sacred carpet, leads us to Genghis Khan's mausoleum. After Genghis Khan's death, White Palace yurts were put up in his memory. These later became permanent, transformed into today's 8 White Palaces. But where Genghis Khan actually is remains a mystery. But the ritual of paying respects to him here has been passed down from generation to generation by the mausoleum keepers. Next, it's time to round up our aerial survey of this fantastic province with a journey deep into China's desert belt, where we'll take in some wild desert games and feel the vastness of the desert in the company of some camels and search for the most tenacious species in the Gobi. This is a 2-way, 8-lane, first-class highway bridge. 37 meters wide across the Yellow River. It's the widest bridge in the Yellow River Basin. Under the bridge is a young lake, the Uhai Lake. In 2013, the Haibo Water Conservancy Hub over the Yellow River was completed. Here, the water of the Yellow River is channeled into a 118 square kilometer reservoir. Of course, people have their own stereotypes of life in the desert. Stereotypes that these dynamic games shatter. In 2017, 350,000 off-road vehicles and 2 million drivers gathered here. The result was something like a martial arts tournament on wheels. It's not until you travel across a sand dune that you really begin to comprehend what sand really is. The dunes are steep and tricky. Get up one side and down the other, and full control of the vehicle demands real skill. The surface on the windward side is hard, whilst the leeward side is soft. Speed is of the essence if you want to keep moving forward. This is China's third largest desert, Badain-Jaran Desert, 40 times the size of Hong Kong. It has the highest sand dune in the world. Camels are the most commonly seen animals in the desert. Al-Shalig has been known as the Kingdom of Camels since ancient times. Two-humped or Bactrian camels have evolved special features to help them survive in desert conditions. Bactrian camels were first domesticated about 4,000 years ago. Ever since, they've been man's faithful friend and companion in the desert. Along the G7 expressway, we head north to Inner Mongolia's greatest desert, the Gobi. Deep in the desert are mysterious ruins, the remains of an ancient city on the old Silk Road, Haicheng, Karakoto in Mongolian, the Black City. The city was built in the 9th century by the Western Shah. Its prosperity lasted for nearly 500 years. Looking down from the air, you can clearly see the city's rectangular shape, its two gates, east and west. In the northwest corner, there are 5 overturned bowl pagodas, which is a unique architectural form in Tibetan Buddhism. Blasted by sand from all directions, this ancient city is gradually being eroded away and buried. Already many relics lie hidden beneath the ever-shifting sands. Juyan Lake is an old lake in Ijin Manor, Inner Mongolia. The lake was formed when a number of branches of the Haihua River converged. Haihua River was once known as the Weak Water. In fact, during the 1960s, the water supply got so weak that the Haihua River was cut off. Deprived of water, Julian Lake dried up. And that's the way it stayed until 2003, when the river Haihua made a miraculous reappearance, bringing the old lake back to life. Changes in rivers also affects one of the most tenacious species on Earth. It's said that this kind of poplar tree can live 1,000 years. And even if it dies, it won't fall for another 1,000 years. Even when it does, it'll take 1,000 more years for it to rot away. But die they will one day, when the river changes course again and the water table drops below 9 meters. But that's a long way off. Thanks to irrigation on the Gobi, these poplar trees are safe. Wherever water flows, as long as it flows, the poplars will thrive. And its presence has beneficial knock-on effects, fending off the wind and preventing erosion, helping to bind sand so that it can become soil capable of sustaining other forms of plant life, shoring up riverbanks, reducing water loss. These are just a few of the benefits the local environment gets from this corridor of poplars, stretching for nearly 1,000 miles. A great wall of trees in the struggle to survive in this harsh environment.